Hello everybody. Welcome to our final Educator Board Forum. I am your Vice Chair, Israel Torres, and joined along with me is our President, Catalina Castillo. Would you like to say hi?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that. And joined today is our special guest, David Doughton. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is David Doughton. I'm a eighth grade middle school teacher. I teach at Colton Middle School. Been there for the last 20 years, been teaching since the year 2000. I teach eighth grade language arts. I also teach eighth grade AVID. I'm also the coach of our Knowledge Bowl academic team. Been doing that for about 14, 15 years on campus. I'm very, very excited to be here and share my experiences with everyone. Want to give a special shout out to Israel Torres for having me here. Thank you very, very much. And it's going to go well.
Thank you so much, David Doughton. Okay, so just a quick reminder, we will be accepting questions at the end of our presentation. So if you have anything, just keep them to yourself until we open up the Q&A section. If you don't have a mic or anything of the sorts, you can write them down in the chat when we do our Q&A. So I'll hand over the floor to David Doughton. So if you want to take the floor from here, you're more than welcome to.
Awesome. All right. So hopefully everyone's doing okay and staying safe, especially. Here to share some experiences that I've had in my teaching career. Again, I've been doing it for 20 years, and it's been a wonderful and crazy and hectic and stressful 20 years, but I would not have it any other way. Being a middle school teacher it opens up a whole new world. It's absolutely fantastic. And so a lot of what I'm going to be sharing with you today is from my experiences at Colton Middle School in the last 20 years, and to maybe give you some advice on what to do when you become educators out in the field. I have about 10 pieces of advice I want to share with you, and I'll kind of intertwine some experiences along the way. The first thing I would suggest to everyone when becoming an educator, well, it's way different than working fast food or working in a mall. You're doing a lot of interactions and communications with people, and everything can just go haywire from 1 minute to the next. But you definitely have to love what you do. You definitely have to love being an educator. You can't go into it thinking, well, it's just going to be a job, or no, I'm only in it for a couple of years or so. You really have to love being that role model in the classroom. I can tell you firsthand, my first couple of years, it was an eye-open experience, and it was a test to see if I really was going to do it. I graduated from Cal State San Bernardino in 2000. I got my bachelor's degree there, and I was just going into the credential program. And while I was in that one of my credential classes, I had a friend that said, "Hey, they're hiring over in Colton. They could use some English teachers." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Well, I wasn't planning on being a teacher yet because, again, I just got into the program. But I went over to Colton High School because they were looking for someone, and so I interviewed and did my spiel at Colton High, and everything went pretty good. And the very next day, I get a call from Colton Middle School, and they said, "Hey, we heard you were talking to Colton High School. Come over to us." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And so I talked to Colton Middle School, and they said, "All right, we want you here right now. Right? We want to start you right now." I'm like, look, I just got into the credential program, and I'm still getting a grasp on this. And then I thought, okay, I'm finally hitting my dream. I'm becoming a teacher, and I can stop working in the mall. Yeah, I'm gonna go teach. I'm gonna do that. And then I realized teaching was a lot more than what you learn in a college classroom. Teaching is a lot more than what happens in educational books and journals and articles. It's a lot of work. My first 2 years, it was crazy. It was very, very crazy. It was very different. It was a really, really eye-opening experience. And I'll be honest with you, the first 2 years of teaching, quite a few times I would drive home crying because I just felt like I didn't know what I was doing, or I wasn't reaching the kids, or I would drive home saying, okay, this is not happening the way it was supposed to happen, in the textbook that I read. And all of those days of just being upset and wondering what was I going to do, I would still ask myself, do I love what I do? And the answer always came back, yes. Like no matter what, I loved what I did. And every new experience opened up new doors for me to learn new concepts and new ideas and better ways to become a teacher. And I loved every minute of it. So you have to love what you do. And the first 2, maybe even 3 years, that's going to be a test to see if you can go through with it or not, especially in middle school. But once you get the hang of it, it's just, I shouldn't say smooth sailing, it's sailing. It's wonderful sailing because the rewards that will happen on being a teacher is just fantastic. The second piece of advice I would give on being a teacher is communication and honesty. There's a lot of communication that happens inside the classroom, not only with the students that you will have, but communication with parents and communication with other teachers. You'll be doing a lot of talking, more talking than you ever thought you would imagine inside of a classroom. And the meetings you would have, with back to school nights and parent conferences, the communication, you have to be able to communicate with other individuals, and they'll be asking you questions and coming to you seeking advice. And there'll be times when you'll become more than a teacher. I mean, you'll become a big brother, you become a big sister, you become a mentor, you'll become, in some cases, you'll feel like you're taking on a parental role in that classroom because of all the talking and communication that you will do. And not only with the teachers, with the students and parents, communicating with other teachers is very, very important. It's so important when you're becoming an educator. I would even say, have like teacher buddies, teachers that are in your department or in your grade level that you can always go to whenever you're needing help or seeking advice, or even if it's like you knock on their door and say, hey, you know what, I need to go off on a few things. I just need you to listen. Always, being able to communicate with someone else, is very, very important. And it helps, keep the sanity at a good level. Because, teaching can be, it can be different at all times. And you don't want to lose the art of communicating through all that. Honesty is very important. You always want to not sugarcoat. I don't really sugarcoat when I'm in the classroom. I try to be as honest as I can with the students, and they appreciate when you're displaying a lot of honesty to them. They appreciate when you're being very straightforward with them. The respect level will increase when you're not trying to hide what's happening in the classroom or hide the relationship between teacher and student. When you're very, very honest, it can open up new doors of trust inside the classroom, which is very, very important. Third piece of advice that I will say is don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen in the classroom, and we're going to do a lot of it. For me as a teacher, I know I try new things from time to time. I'll try a new lesson, or I'll try a new lesson approach, and I'll bring it up to the kids. And 10 minutes into it, 15 minutes into it, I'm realizing, okay, this is bombing very, very badly. This is not going well. I'm like, okay, it's a mistake I made, we move on. I've had some teachers growing up where they never wanted to admit they made a mistake. They never wanted to admit they said or did something wrong. They always wanted to have that authoritative stature in the classroom, and they would not let anyone else who was younger, correct them in any way. Teachers are human beings, and we're gonna make those mistakes from time to time. And the best thing that we can do is just acknowledge that we made that mistake, and then just move on from it. Because even though we're teachers, we're still learning too. We're still learning what happens in the room. We're still learning how we interact with the kids. We're still learning how a lesson plan is going to go. We're learning how something is going to be taught or discussed or displayed in the classroom. And some things are going to bomb. Some things are just not going to work, and you just have to go, okay, that didn't work. I'll try something else. And if we're afraid to realize that, okay, I made a mistake, I'm going to try to move on. If we're afraid to do that, then teaching is just not it. Don't be afraid to admit you're wrong. Don't be afraid of that. I discovered, and it's taken me a long time to discover this, but when I make a mistake in the classroom, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I made this mistake. You're absolutely right. This is what I got to learn. This is what I'm, going to remember for next time. Students, middle school students, they acknowledge that. They respect that, and they respect the teachers when they can see that I'm not just a robot in front of the class that has to follow a script all the time. When they can see that we're human beings, and that it's okay to make mistakes, and that we can learn from the mistakes. And when they see that, they'll think, okay, I'm buying into what's happening in the room. That means if I make a mistake, I can learn from it. I can move on. It's not going to shatter my dreams. It's not going to ruin my world. It's going to make me a stronger person. Number 4, I would say, this is probably one of the most important ones, is that your classroom, I think your classroom needs to be a very, very safe room. That classroom should be a safe haven for all the students that you have. Right, even right now during the pandemic, we're unable to do anything on campus. We're unable to meet with them face to face and teach face to face. We're doing everything on a computer screen using Wi-Fi and Zoom and WebEx like right now. But when we go back in the classroom, when we go back, your classroom needs to be a safe place for all the students. They need to know that when they're in that room with you, they don't need to feel scared. They don't need to feel nervous. They need to feel trusted. They need to feel that I can be myself in this room. I won't be judged. I won't be bullied. I won't be verbally beaten down or just mean mugged across the classroom because, oh, you're different. Oh, you're this. They have to know that you're there for them, and that you will be there for them, and you will protect them while they're in that room. That trust level is very, very, very important. They gotta feel like they can be safe at all times. There have been so many times where either before school or after school when we were on campus that I would have conversations with students in my classroom because they felt that they could trust me. They felt that my room was a place where they could have like a wonderful therapy session, or they can just admit to how they're feeling or how their day is going, and we can talk it out and we can hash it out, and I can offer some advice and offer some pointers, and they can just be themselves in that room, and the trust level goes up when that happens. And when the trust level goes up, the connection between educator and student is very, very, very high, and because of that, the productivity that a student will deliver will just increase tenfold with that. Let's see, I'm on number 5. I think this one is going to be patience. Patience is key to being a teacher. Oh, I did not have patience growing up. I'm a very, very impatient person. I jumped the gun a lot, and I'm like, wow, now I'm a teacher. And so when things are not happening the way I want them to, it's like I can't just fly off the handle. I can't just say, no, everyone needs to do this. I had to learn to be very, very patient in the classroom because I'm working with many different minds. I'm working with many different emotions. I'm working with young minds. I'm working with 12, 13, and 14-year-old minds, especially in today's age where things are flying to and fro, back and forth, and where their attention span just it's hummingbird style, and it's hard to keep them with me. It's hard to keep them focused. It's hard to keep their attention in one area, and without patience, it can be crazy. Nothing is going to go as planned being a teacher, and you have to be patient to kind of just let some things fall as they may. And there are days when you have a great lesson plan and you plan it out in your head and you say, I'm going to do this, and we're going to read this story, we're going to learn these concepts, and we're going to go through parts of speech, and we're going to learn gerunds and irregular verbs and direct and indirect objects. And then 3 minutes into the class session, everything just goes out the window because one student wants this, another student needs this. There's a fire drill happening, and someone just throws something across the room, or no one wants to be a part of the lesson, and then 4 kids are sleeping, and then someone has to go to the restroom, and you're standing here like, okay, everything I planned, everything that I wanted to do is just going out the window. You gotta be patient. You gotta be patient and just, okay, let me go to plan B. Let me go to a plan C. If you have to, go to plan W, plan X, plan Y. Whatever you have to do to get through that whole day, and you have to be patient. You have to be patient. And I remember, growing up and being in a classroom and being 13 years old and just driving, teachers up the wall, partly because I thought it was fun at 13 years old, just to watch them lose their mind. And now being on the other side of that desk, and if a 13-year-old can see that you're losing your patience, if a 13-year-old can see that you're about to lose your mind or go ballistic, it's like a contest for some of them. Like, ooh, let's see what we can do. Let's see how fast we can make them lose their mind. Let's see if we can make them just, forget everything and just, go crazy. It's kind of like a game for some. But if you remain calm and you're very patient, they will see that, okay, things are a little frazzled right now, but they got it. My teacher has it. So I'm going to let them do their thing. I'm going to be there with them. Number 6, I think I'm on number 6, is it's very important to try to recognize strengths and weaknesses with every student that you have. It's a tall task to do with every student. In middle school, I have 6 different classes. So I'll average maybe 100 to 150 different students every year. And so for 20 years, we're talking probably 3,000 students that I've had the pleasure of coming into my classroom or on my virtual classroom, and being able to recognize strengths and weaknesses with all the students is very, very important because a lot of students, they have different learning styles. Not everyone can just grasp a concept at the drop of a hat. Not everyone can look at a problem or a question on the board and know how to solve it, or know how to come to a conclusion, or know how to go from point A to point B. They're audio learners, they're tactile learners, they're logical learners. And so a lot of kids have different ways of processing information. Even right now, during the distance learning that we're doing, there's a huge difference with how students are grasping the information that's being presented to them. some of the students that I have, they love distance learning. This is like heaven for them because they can just look at a computer screen all day and they get the information, they do the work, they turn it in, and everything is hunky-dory. And then there's other students where they feel so lost. They feel so, they feel like they're helpless because they want that interaction. They want that ability to visually see someone and interact with someone and have face-to-face conversations with other students or with their teachers. And because that's not happening, they feel like they're all alone. And so the learning styles that they're used to doing inside of a classroom, they feel like it's gone. And so they kind of drop off the educational map. And those are the students where you're like, okay, their learning style is they have to interact. They have to be with other individuals. They have to talk to other individuals. And then the question is, how do I reach those kids? How do I reach those kids who feel like all of their learning styles that would happen in a classroom are just gone and they feel all alone behind the computer screen? How do I get those kids back? How do I get those kids focused? How do I get them to feel like they are accepted into a classroom? And that's when I go back to the communication. That's when the communication really comes in. That's when the conversations and the talking and the reaching out to the students and letting them know that they are not alone and letting them know that you understand what they're going through, that you understand that this is extremely different than what they're used to. But if you could talk to them, if you show them that no matter where the education happens, and that you are still there for them, and that the learning style can be still a face-to-face conversation, even though you're separated by Wi-Fi and passwords, it can still be productive. It can still be positive. And if you recognize the weakness of not being in the classroom, but try to turn it around to a strength of powering through, of pushing through, of trying to be able to go on through the learning process, even though you're not in the classroom, then it's a victory. It's a guaranteed victory for the student. It's a victory for the teacher. It's a victory for the parents, because we can't forget about them. They're going through this with the kids also. And if everyone can come together like that, then all the learning styles can still happen, even though you're not in the classroom. And it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle this year, trying to get kids to stay in the virtual classroom and trying to get kids to pretend that we're still doing wonderful things with education. So many times I've caught myself saying, all right, guys, we got 2 minutes until the bell. Like, wait, no, there's no bell. There's no bell here. And they look at me like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I just forgot that we're not in the classroom. And one time I said that, a student said, no, we are. We are in the classroom. I mean, we're not in school, but we're here. This is a classroom. And just hearing that made me realize, okay, the strength is having the courage to power through, having the courage to stay motivated, and having the courage to try to use their in-school learning styles through digital learning. Let's see, the seventh one. When you're an educator, when you're in front of a classroom with the kids, don't forget you were a kid at one time. Don't forget about that. Don't forget at one time you were in elementary school, middle school, high school. When you're in front of those kids and they may drive you to a point where you're just like, you want to pull your hair out if you had hair. If you want to just yank it all out. Don't forget, at one time you were on the other side. Think about how was school for you, when you were in elementary, middle, and high school. How was the interactions for you? How was the atmosphere for you? Did your teachers make your classroom into a safe haven for you? Were they honest with you? Were they communicating? Were they trying to recognize strengths and try to, eliminate as many weaknesses as possible? So remember when you were in the classroom, and if you had some great experiences, you can probably, use those, in your classroom setting. But if there were some experiences where you're like, okay, that didn't work for me as a kid, remember that when you're in your classroom setting. So maybe, some things won't work in today's society. I mean, now there's like so much computer usage now. We didn't have that when I was, in middle school, back in the 80s. There wasn't even internet in the 80s. Oh my God, I'm old. But think about how school was for you, and try to adapt some of the positive things, some of the great things that worked for you into your classroom now, which is actually one of the reasons why I became a teacher. Education was not one of the careers I was going for. It was the farthest from my mind. Being a teacher, no. I was like, going to school, this is just horrid. I gotta like be in here and learn and read and write. Oh, this is boring. But luckily, I had a few teachers, along my path in life that really, really helped me out. In my high school days, my sophomore year, I had an English teacher. Oh, she was fantastic. I mean, she was a very, very honest teacher. She pretty much laid it out, like it was supposed to be. Whatever you needed to hear, she would tell you. But she was very, very constructive in her positiveness. She was very constructive with her criticisms. Like when she told you how something wasn't going, she helped you. She gave you advice and pointers and tips on how things could be. And she helped me, stay, with education and become better. And then when I was in college, I was going to Riverside City College, RCC. I had a professor, who was I thought, a fantastic writer, and she, helped me with the writing process and getting more into English and in the English language and all of the different tools and items that go with it. And I was like, wow, this is really great. I have these people that are really helping me, and they went, out of their way. They would help me out so many times. I'm like, maybe I should probably do this. And I think by the time I finished my sophomore year of college, I'm thinking, this is what I want to do. I want to be a teacher because of all the great things that happened to me, all the wonderful things that happened, all the people that really helped me out. Now I want to pay it forward. I want to do the same thing. I want to help kids so they can become better, so they will improve with their reading, their writing, their speaking, their listening. I want to do for them what other teachers have done for me. And there have been times when I'm in the classroom and I'll talk to students, or I'll see how they're interacting with each other or how they are in the classroom. And I'll think, oh my God, that's me. That's how I was when I was 12. That's how I was when I was 13. And you get that feeling of, I really have to do something. I really have to help. I really got to go out of my way. Now, there were a few times I'm like, okay, the teachers are too involved. They're trying to help me where I don't want them to help. Like one story, for example, when I was in 8th grade, I did not like doing book reports. Oh, I hated doing book reports. It was just, no, I wouldn't do it. And so my grade was dropping in my language arts class because I wasn't focusing a lot. I wasn't doing the work. I lived about 3.5 miles away from the school I went to when I was in 8th grade. And at the time I was living in Chicago. During the winter time, snow on the ground, it's very, very cold, around 6:30 at night. There's a knock on my door. It's my 8th grade teacher. She came to my house because she gave me progress reports to give my parents. I didn't give them to her. She gave me extra things I could do to bring my grade up. I didn't do it. And I was starting to lag off on the normal work that was happening. But she kept saying she saw something in me. She knew what I could do. She knew what I was capable of, but I was just being really, really, really lazy. She showed up to my house and she talked to my parents. And I thought that was the worst thing that could have ever happened. I'm like, how could you do this to me? How could you do this to me? And that night didn't go very well for me either. Yeah. My parents and I got into some serious conversations. They won. But now that teacher and I, we're friends on social media because of what she tried to do for me, how she tried to help me. And I thanked her tremendously for being there for me and going out of the way for me, because I mean, not many individuals, not many teachers really have the time to do that, even if they wanted to. But she did, went way out of her way to really try to help me and save me. And if you remember a moment like that when you were a kid, that will help you when you're an educator, because you will want to help as many kids as you can. You will want to be there, for the kids as much as you can, and you'll want to push them through. You'll want them to be as great as they can be, so that they can go on and maybe they could become educators themselves and help the next person along. Number eight would be have an athlete's memory. Have the memory of an athlete when you're an educator. And here's what I mean by that. Bad days are going to happen. Some horrible days are going to happen. Some days where you're just going to, it's like, ugh. You got to let it go. You can't think about it for too long. Things are going to happen in the classroom where you might have to have a conference with a student, or call a parent, or just a really, really bad day where everything is just like, okay, this classroom day was just horrendous. You have to let the next day, because with an athlete, if they have a really, really bad game, or if they throw an interception that costs them the game, or if they're winning a Super Bowl at halftime by 25 points and lose the Super Bowl, you have to move on from that. You can't let that day or that moment define you. You have to have the memory of an athlete and say, okay, this happened. Now I got to move on and play the next game. Because if you focus on the bad game that you had, you're not going to do well in your current game, because you're so focused on what happened previously. The day that didn't go well in the classroom, got to move on from that and just say, okay, it's a brand new day. I'm going to start fresh, because a bad today cannot mean a bad tomorrow. And the kids will see that. The kids will realize that, okay, they're too focused on the past when we're trying to tell them you got to move on. We got to be that role model and move on ourselves. Number 9 is the teacher workday has certain hours. When the workday is over, do your best to get out of teacher mode. I teach English, been teaching for 20 years. Because of the subject that I teach, and because my love for the English language, I catch myself outside of the school day. I catch myself listening to conversations, listening to other people, verbally interact with me or each other. And I may hear something incorrect, or I'll hear the wrong usage of a verb. And now I want to correct them. Now I want to say, oh, no, you can't say that. You got to say this. Or no, what you just did was a run-on sentence. You don't want to do that. Actually, how you were talking, you don't want to use, that verbiage there. You want to change it up. You don't want to do that. I do that. I did it with my some friends of mine, with family members. I'm like, okay, I got to get out of teacher mode. I can't talk to everyone like they're 13 years old and 14 years old all the time. That's not healthy. As much as you can, you want to try to keep, the teacher persona into the classroom. You want to try to still have a life outside of teaching. it's hard, it's challenging to do because you're always thinking about what you can plan. You're always thinking about what you can do next. You're always thinking about your subject because that's your career. That's what you were going for. And you want to find new ways to teach it and find new ways to show it off. And just every now and then that teacher mentality stays with you on the weekend, on the holidays, on summer vacation. It just stays with you. You got to try to, have a life outside of education. If not, you're going to go crazy. You're really going to go crazy. And then the last thing I would probably say, on being a teacher and being a successful teacher is just having fun. Try to have fun in the classroom as much as you can. Develop ways where students will feel like learning is not torture. That 1 hour or 50 minutes in the classroom will go by in the blink of an eye. I mean, I love it when students tell me at the end of a period, like, what? It's time to go now? I feel like we just got here. I'm like, okay. They enjoyed the lesson or they got into it and we had fun. After my first couple of years of, harrowing experiences of teaching, I decided I got to do something. I got to have some fun with the kids. And so I started doing like challenges in my classroom. Started playing more games in the classroom, started doing more class competitions in the classroom. One, I think went a little way too far, and it really got me on the map of being a teacher that likes to not be so serious all the time. This was in 2003. I made a challenge to a class, one period that I had that was kind of struggling. And I tried to push them and push them and push them until finally I said, you know what? I'm going to challenge all of you. I'm going to go out of my comfort zone and give you this challenge. If everyone achieves all of these goals as your reward, I will do something that's way outside of my zone. I will pretend to be a different human being, character, or celebrity, artist, and I'll do whatever you tell me to do. You're like, what? Really? I'm like, yeah, whatever you tell me to do. Like, if you want me to be Gloria Estefan, I'll do it. If you want me to be Woody Woodpecker, I'll do it. Like, the game is on. They worked harder than any class I ever dreamed of. And they excelled and achieved all goals I threw at them. And I'm like, okay, they're going to give me some torture. They're going to make me do something crazy. And they said, okay, Mr. Doughton, here's what we want you to do. We're going to have you lip sync a song. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? They said, no, wait. We don't know if you're going to be Justin Timberlake, Michael Jackson, or Christina Aguilera. We got to think about it. And I'm like, oh man, what did I get myself into? Luckily, I didn't want to be either one of them, but they voted for Michael Jackson. So I had to pretend to be Michael Jackson and lip sync a song. So I had to practice, rehearse. Somehow, the San Bernardino Sun newspaper got wind of this. And so when I was going to perform, a reporter and a photographer were in the room while I was doing this. I thought, okay, this is going to be interesting. But I went through with it. They put it in the paper. I still have the article locked up in my classroom. But since then, I realized, this was fun. This is pretty fun. I went way out of my comfort zone and I pretty much embarrassed myself, but the kids had fun. And they're learning that it's okay to, accept challenges. And they liked the fact that I followed through with the challenge. A few kids thought that I was going to back out because, I made them do all this work and now I'm going to back out of the challenge. But I got a lot of respect from the kids because I followed through with it. And and mostly because I'm going to go back to number one, it's mostly because I love what I do. I love that I can be there for the kids. I love that I can share my experiences and my thoughts with the kids and have them relatable to them. I love that when they have that aha moment in their eyes and they finally have learned something. And you will love that too. You will love it when you see it in the kids' eyes. You will love it when they say thank you. You will love it when at the end of the school year, when they tell you how they were feeling, indifferent about certain things, and then they came into your classroom and you opened the door for them. You showed them that there was hope. You showed them that there was, a way, to get through a lot of obstacles with education. And when that happens, that thank you that you'll get from the kids, that's better than any paycheck you'll ever receive. That's better than any bonus that you will ever achieve. When a student says thank you, that's what it's all about. And when you love what you do, and when you love what you do for them, that will be the best reward when they say thank you. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you will take in some of the advice that I gave. Thank you for listening. This is I'll admit, my first time ever doing something like this. And yeah, the nerves were there. But when you become a teacher, you'll probably have that nervous feeling too, like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Just have fun with it. Enjoy what you do. See it as a long learning experience, and just have fun. Just go for it. Just be there for all the kids, and in turn, they will academically be there for you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Guy. Right now, we can move into the Q&A section of this Educator board forum. Again, I see Janelle is raising her hand, I believe. If you want to ask a question, I'm asking you to unmute. Do you have the ability to unmute themselves, Catalina? You know?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Unmute yourself, Janelle.
Oh, hello. The reason why I kept myself muted for all is because there's something going on in my house which is very loud, so I didn't want to disturb anybody. So I apologize for that. But I just would like to say is I really love your advices, Mr. David, and it just gave me so much how would I word it out? So much inspiration, what I should do when I become a teacher, and I really appreciate so much. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad I could I could do that for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janelle. Does anybody have a question that they want to throw in? If not, because I did write a couple questions. Just to I'll throw you a softball one for now, Mr. Ryan. I know you kind of touched up on this a little bit, but I want to say it's there was kind of a certain memory you have, but what's one of the most enjoyable things about teaching, and if you have any specific experiences around that field, we would like to hear it.
Well, some of the memorable experiences would have to be actually not in the classroom, but when I see students outside of my classroom. Now, when they're graduated from middle school and they're gone, and every now and then they'll come back. They'll come back on campus and say, "Hey, Mr. Doughton, how you doing?" And if not that, this wonderful experience right now with you, Israel, it's awesome to see you again. But it's really great when just out of the blue I'll run into a student that has gone on and past middle school and past high school. I'll see them working at In-N-Out, or I'll see them working at Stater Brothers, or I'll see them as teachers themselves. There were a few times where former students, they would come back on campus and they're in the credential program and they're subbing in classrooms, and they'll see me and I'm like, "Mr. Doughton," I'm like, yeah, it's me. Like, oh my God. And because, I'm used to seeing them at 13 and 14 years old, and now they're grown. And so I mean, those are some great memorable moments. And when you become an educator, after a while, it's going to happen to you, and you'll just be minding your own business, just either shopping in the store or at a concert or at a baseball game, and you'll hear Mr. Torres. And if you do like a really lasting impact on them, they'll remember you. They'll remember you for a very long time. So those are some great moments for me.
Thank you so much. Sorry, my friends gave me some candy. Um, okay. I know you kind of touched again. If anybody has any questions, you could type them in the chat, or you could unmute yourself. Like we established before, you have the ability to unmute yourself. But just to get into like a more serious question, what's like one of the most troubling things that teachers have to like face? Like you said, we don't know what happens a lot behind the scenes. So like, what's like one of the most like troubling things that as an educator you have to like face?
One of the most troubling things is, like, for example, now during the distance learning, one of the most troubling things is not knowing what a student is going through when they're not in class, or reasons why they can't attend, because we don't know their home life situation. And there have been students who said one of the reasons why they want to go back on campus is because they're away from things that are happening at home. They're away from some of the hustle and bustle and some of the craziness that might be happening where they live. And there are some students, unfortunately, we try to reach, but we can't. Like, no matter what we do, we just can't reach them. We can't get to them. We can't get them to buy into what we're trying to produce in the classroom. And so I'm speaking for a lot of with my colleagues at Colton Middle, is that's one of the things that it troubles and hurts us, that we can't reach all of the kids.
Thank you so much. I think that my follow-up question to that is I think kind of similar in the same vein, but like how difficult was it to kind of just transition into from a physical class to an online class?
For me personally, it was difficult. It was very, very difficult. Trying to convert my usual patterns of a classroom and do everything on a screen, because I feel like I'm very limited in what I can do. It's difficult to share information with students because of Wi-Fi connections. Everyone's connection and Wi-Fi signals vary from area to area. Inside of a classroom, you can visually see everyone and you can account for what everyone is doing. But with students that are online, it's very hard. And then I have students now I've never seen. They're on my roster. They're in the class. Every now and then they might talk, or they'll type in the chat, but they don't put themselves on camera. Either they can't or they won't. And you really can't force them to do so, because again, you don't know what's happening on their end. And so it's very difficult to get them to be involved. That's where the fun has to come in. The honesty and the fun comes in. I do contests once a week where if they show themselves on camera, they can play a game to try to score imaginary points for their class, or things to help them out. Luckily, it's been helping. I'd say I have more than 50% of my students that are showing themselves on camera in some shape or form. And because other students are buying into it, because other students may be comfortable with it, they are my assistants in terms of getting individuals to lower their guard. They're befriending other students, and they're trying to urge their friends to be a part of it, and just pretend as much as they can that this is a classroom session. It's still difficult though. It's very, very difficult, because some are just like, headstrong, no, not going to do it. And you can lead a horse to water.
Thank you so much. I think I see something in the chat, and it's from Catalina herself. She says, "And how do you establish a connection with students that won't turn on camera?"
If the students won't turn on camera, then the next best option would just be a verbal connection. If you can get them to communicate verbally, that's still the next best thing. Like I said, I have some students that will not turn on their camera, but they are making the effort to try to be as involved in class as possible. It usually starts as a one-on-one session. I do tutoring twice a week, and some students will attend the tutoring and they'll type their questions in the chat, and I'll try to urge them and say, you know what, it's just the two of us. You can speak, and also by using their voice, the information can be shared a lot faster than just waiting for text. But they have to buy into it. They have to believe that you are there for them, and that your communication is wholesome and pure.
Thank you so much. I wanted to kind of touch up on a point that you had made earlier on within like one of your 10 advices, and one of them was kind of just like knowing the strengths and weaknesses of students. How do you like kind of see like what like how do you determine that for, because I know you work with like you said, you work up to like 150 students per year. Like how for us, like just to kind of get ourselves like ahead of the game, like how do we kind of determine like, okay, this works for this student but it doesn't work for other students, like how can we like kind of determine like what's a student's strength and weakness?
Typically, it starts off with information that they would do in class, diagnostic testing, and it takes a while to determine what each student is capable of doing and how they learn. It's something that can't happen right away, but over the course, I would say maybe a few weeks in the classroom, you get to see the students as individuals and how they work in the classroom. So it does take some time, but through testing and through classwork and homework and grades, and watching how they react to situations in the classroom, if they are shy, or if they're an extrovert where they have no problem being in front of everyone in certain situations, or they clam up and they want to keep to themselves, and just making notes on every student, and how they fare in the classroom session. So it does take a while. It's something that really can't happen immediately, and for some it might take a quarter or a semester for you to gauge how they are in the classroom. And because of all that, I have to admit, because I focus so much on the kids I have during that 1 year, once they're gone, I try to still remember them, but then a new batch of 100 and 150 kids come in that I gotta, learn, their strengths and weaknesses, their likes and dislikes. And so they come back and visit years later, and I tell them up front, I said, I know the name, but their face I'm struggling with. And that happened to you guys too, because you'll focus so much on trying to learn the kids' strengths and weaknesses that when the kids grow up, it's going to be different. I would suggest having a log for each student, so that you can jot information down. So if you ever have to do meetings or IEP meetings or parent conferences, you'll have that information on each student. And so with that information, you'll know how you can approach them when it comes to their education, or approach them when it comes to if they're having problems or situations, because maybe with their personality, there's certain ways they will react to how information is given to them.
Okay, thank you. And again, like I said, if you want to ask any questions, feel free to join in. I mean, I still see Janelle and Sarai in here, so if you want to ask anything or type anything in the chat, you're more than welcome to. One more question from me. I know you kind of tackled on the point about creating a safe space for students. How exactly have you try to accomplish that? Because I know there's many factors that can go into like creating a safe space for students, whether that be kind of like verbally or like within like the environment. Like I know like some teachers will like have like their whole rooms like decorated and stuff like that. I just want to know like how can we establish like a safe space for our students?
One way you can do it, great question, by the way. One way you can do it is definitely, decorating, making the classroom very, very colorful, very vibrant. I would advise, if there's like certain hobbies and things you like, plaster that in the room. If you're into baseball or travel or science fiction, make a section where you boast about some of your own personal interests. And some of the students will catch on to that, and they will be more welcome to talk to you about how you share certain interests. Maybe it could be Legos or Harry Potter or the NFL, and you can have more pleasant conversations that way. I'm not a great decorator. I have a lot of colorful posters and items in my room, but in terms of decorating, it's not that great. So for me, a lot of what I do to create a safe environment for the kids is just how I talk to them and how I approach them. Usually on the first day of school, I don't go into what my expectations and the goals for the classroom right away. I talk to them as human beings. Yes, they're between ages of 12 and 14, but I talk to them as individuals getting ready to go to high school. I try not to treat them as children. I don't treat them as people that don't know what they're doing. I try to give them the respect that they deserve. And I know they're still trying to learn new things, and they challenge every now and then. But once they hear the respect from me and the honesty that I give them right when the school year starts, and I tell them right off the bat, this room, when you're in this room, we're going to keep everyone safe no matter what. And then I have to back that up immediately. I'm a very honest teacher in the classroom, and I developed that from some of the teachers I've had that really helped me out. If they have a problem, I'll help them with it. I'll talk to them about it. If I can't get to it in the classroom, definitely before the day is over, I will find them, and I talk to them, and I try to help them out with their situation. So even though I said it's a safe classroom, no matter where they're at on campus, if they need me, then I'm there. The last couple of years when we were on campus, we do the fire drills and the earthquake drills, but now it's been heavily into lockdown drills. Intruder on campus, and we have to prepare for that. I don't hold back on any of those drills, especially the intruder on campus. I treat them as real as possible. It's probably something that some other educators might not agree with, but I feel that if the students know that I will do anything I can for them, they have to believe that. I can't just say, I will be there for you. I have to show them that in this room, with me, if you're on this campus with me, I'm gonna do everything I can to keep you safe. So you gotta back up everything that you do. And I would recommend being honest with them right from the get-go. And if they catch you slipping, if they catch you lying on any of that, then the relationship could be gone. It could be gone for the rest of the year.
Thank you so much. We got a question in the chat from Janelle, and he says, I tend to shake when it comes to speaking in front of people. What is a way to relax myself?
One way, that's good. That's really good. One way to relax yourself is one thing that I do is I give myself a pep talk every morning. When I'm in my classroom or now before I turn my computer on, I tell myself what I'm going to do. I tell myself how I'm going to act in front of my students. I also tell myself, you're probably going to mess up. Like something may happen, but you just have to go with it. That pep talk really helps for me. And I have, like when I was growing up, I had a huge stuttering problem, especially when I became very nervous. It would really, really come out when I would speak. Growing up, I would avoid doing presentations in class because I didn't want anyone to hear me speak, and I didn't want anyone to hear how nervous I was because words would just run together. When I started going into education, like days before my first time entering a classroom, I overthought it. I was really, really terrified on, oh, they're going to hear me speak. They're going to hear me nervous. And, that middle school and high school stuttering was starting to come back. And I didn't mention this before, but my first time teaching, it was a classroom that made the previous teacher quit. Like they drove that person out. And they got me, who was just entering the credential program, to take over. And that was my first classroom experience. Those were my kids. And I'm like, this is gonna really break me. And what I had to do, and what I still do now, is I give myself a talk. I tell myself what I can do. I tell myself what I've done to get to this point. I tell myself that I have to be there for the kids. I also tell myself, and this was big, starting in my education career, I told myself, it doesn't matter how I sound. What matters is what I say and what I give. If stuttering happens, it happens. If I lose train of thought, which I do from time to time, and the older I get, the more it happens, it's just a part of me. The pep talk is probably one of the best things that I could suggest. A daily pep talk. And just remind yourself, you are who you are, and you are great. And you, as being great, are going to make the kids great.
Thank you. I think we're pretty much nearing up our time here. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to either unmute yourself or put it in the chat. But other than that, I'd like to thank Mr. An for joining us here today. It was a real pleasure pretty much catching up with you. For those who don't know, I was a former student of Mr. Don here, and I can hard vouch for the type of teacher that he is. He is really engaging. with the students, and I really wouldn't be in this position I am if it wasn't for him. So I'd like to thank you again, Mr. John, for joining us here today.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Israel. You're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I think that's it. So thank you for joining us here today. This has been our final Educator Board Forum, and we will, for those members who are watching this back, we will begin I believe, the second week of school. So look forward to that. We will resume our club as always. So we're going to continue having more of these board forums. So if you enjoy this, please feel free to give us any suggestions on any teachers that you would like to give us. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for joining.